Please help me welcome Jack Marsh.
That was a little short, Sean. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jack Marsh. I'm a member of Ohio Beta Tau. Graduated from Baldwin Wallace. Anybody else from Ohio Beta Tau here? All right. Okay. Graduated in 1971. That's a long, long time ago. Was anyone in this room alive in 1971 besides George? Well, it's a pleasure to be with you today. We have a lot of ground to cover. This session is titled Living the Creed, and I'm going to ask for your indulgence. At times during the next hour, it may seem like we're not really talking directly about the creed, but I promise that the discussion will wrap up and we will come back to the creed and talk about its relevance to you as you go forward. So let's begin with the creed. You know, when I was inducted into Pi Lambda Phi in 1968, I don't know that we were required to memorize the creed. We had a discussion with some of the elders earlier today about the origin of the creed. You know, who wrote it? We don't know. When was it written? We don't know. Was it 1895? Nobody knows that. What we do know is that the principles of this fraternity have been around since its inception, 115 years. But let's begin with the creed. That all men are created free and equal, that no society of men can flourish unless members of that society are endowed with the opportunities and privileges of freedom, that freedom implies the elimination of prejudice, that the elimination of prejudice means a better understanding twixt men, that it is incumbent upon me to fight for such freedom, even with my life, that it is incumbent upon me in my personal life to be devoted to the highest standards of honesty and justice, that because my country is dedicated to the highest standards of freedom and justice for all men, all creeds, I hereby pledge allegiance to my country and to my national symbol. Well, those are the principles of your fraternity. And whether that creed was written in 1895 or was written in 1925, these have been the principles from our start. And the language is a little, may sound a little dated, you know, like when was the last time you used twixt in a tweet? But nonetheless, the message I think is clear and is certainly as relevant today as it was at our inception in 1895. So in modern day language, folks, let's just hear around the room, what is that saying to you? What are our principles? Just shout them out. What are the principles? What does this mean? Equality. Non-sectarian. Elimination of prejudice. Obedience. Honesty. Tolerance. Justice. Freedom. Live your values every day. Responsibility. Living a high standard. Brotherhood. Honoring others. Ultimate sacrifice. Wow. Wow. Ultimate sacrifice. You know, we talked to George today, and you know, George was a naval officer, retired as a captain in the Naval Reserve. Tim Riker is up here. My brother graduated in the class of 70 from Baldwin Wallace, Ohio Beta Tau. He just retired as a 2-star admiral in the U.S. Coast Guard. George, Tim, they put their life on the line. They defended our freedom, and they gave, you know, they pledged their lives if it was necessary in order to protect the freedoms that we enjoy in this country. So, pretty powerful creed. Pretty powerful creed. Most of you are undergrads, I assume. How many undergrads here? Okay. So the preponderance of the group is undergrads, and I'm pleased with that, to have that, because I want to direct the next 55 minutes or so really to you, the undergrads who are looking ahead to your careers and to most of your lives, and to how that creed is going to be relevant to you going forward. So I just want to ask a few of you, you know, I'm sure that a fair number of you are within a year of graduation and of launching your careers. Is anybody at all anxious or nervous as you are about to be pushed out of the nest and enter the real world? Okay, yeah, get your hands up there. Is anybody nervous or anxious about that? Okay, and if all of you were honest, you'd all have your hands raised, wouldn't you? I would hope so. What is it? Why are you nervous or anxious about the future? Success. Okay, and what is it? Why aren't you completely confident that you're going to jump in there and be a success? Yeah, you wonder about your own expertise. Are you going to measure up? Okay. Anybody else? What is it you're anxious about? Uncertainty. What about your own confidence in your abilities? Any question about that? Okay. Anybody else? Nervous or anxious? Go ahead. You have college loans to pay off. All right. Anybody else?
When I graduate, I'll commission as a second lieutenant in the United States Army, so I'm anxious to fight.
Okay, excellent. Well, I think if we were to call on a lot of you and draw you out a little bit, I think some of you probably would have, you would wonder, gee, when I go out there and go to launch that career, do I have the skills, do I have the knowledge to succeed? And I'm here to tell you that your honesty, your good attitude, your work ethic, your curiosity, and your professionalism in how you act, in what you say, and how you present yourself on the job will make up for any lack of experience and skills. I'm a journalist. I've been a journalist my whole career. I've been a journalist for about 39 years. I now am an executive of a National Journalism Foundation. And I will tell you that in journalism and in most businesses, and there are some exceptions to this, but in journalism and in most businesses, you will be hired because of your charm and your intelligence, your talent, your potential, and your commitment to your chosen field. And although you are expected to have basic competence, no one expects you to perform at the level of the CEO from day one. Your employer hopes that you will be a top achiever one day. I'm sure that the United States Army hopes you're going to be a top achiever someday. But the boss is going to be patient with you and will wait a few years. In my current role at the foundation, which is called the Freedom Forum, I oversee the academic, internship, and scholarship programs that prepare students of color for careers in journalism. In the past 20 years, our organization has placed about 1,700 journalism interns in newsroom jobs throughout the United States. And most of those 1,700, all individuals of color, have gone on to media careers and to successful careers. We are the one organization in this country, when it comes to the media, that is completely dedicated to trying to diversify the newsrooms of this country. Journalism has similarities and it has its differences from many other career fields. Journalism is not a science, nor is it a licensed profession. We don't litigate, we don't perform surgery, we don't prescribe medications. We don't invent, design, or engineer anything. And I think, when I think about the qualities of journalists, I think we're all terrible mathematicians. Our standards are self-imposed and self-enforced, and the First Amendment certainly guarantees us that independence. But regardless of your chosen field, I hope that some of the lessons and experiences that I have learned during my 39-year career will be relevant to you who are just starting out, and that this discussion about living the creed will be also relevant to you. For journalism, for me, journalism has been an ideal field. in which to apply the principles of our fraternity, and I wish you the same opportunity in your chosen field. Of those 1,700 graduates of Freedom Forum diversity programs, we have never had a single failure that had anything to do with lack of experience or even limited skills. It has everything to do with your attitude and your integrity and your work ethic and how you conduct yourselves. The Freedom Forum is in the success business, and the purpose of this session really is to give you some keys to success and to steer you clear of behaviors that could doom your job, your first job, but perhaps doom your entire career. There have been failures among our alumni, and I want to give you the opportunity to learn from some of those failures. Certainly the majority of our people have performed very well. Journalism, like many other fields, is a very tight community. I think we have probably 2 degrees of separation, maybe 3 degrees of separation. It is not at all uncommon. It is almost a daily occurrence that I'm contacted on a reference check, or I'm contacted for a job lead or something like that. Now, I've been in the business a long time, so I have a fair number of contacts. But it is a very common thing for me to be somebody to reach out. So it wasn't unusual at all that I got the following email. This email is now 2 years old. But I got this email from a man who I knew to be a newspaper publisher. Now, a newspaper publisher is the big boss. He's got the corner office, he's got the big car, he gets the bonuses. If you want to go into the newspaper business, you want to become the publisher, okay? And it's something that people aspire to if they really want to get to the top. So I wasn't, when I got this note from this email, I wasn't surprised because I knew this gentleman. You probably don't remember me, but I had the pleasure of meeting you on several occasions. He then goes down to detail when those occasions were, and I recalled them. The reason I am writing is that I'm looking for newspaper employment. I know you are no longer directly associated in newspaper per se, but might know of someone looking for a top-notch newspaper person such as myself. I'm attaching my resume. Please feel free to pass along to anyone in the industry that might be looking for help. I would appreciate any help you could give. And when somebody contacts me, I consider it an honor that they would reach out to me and ask for advice. And so I always try to respond to those requests. I looked at his resume, and one thing was very unusual about the resume. He had left the publisher role after 2 months, and the resume gave no indication as to why. So I immediately responded to him. I said, "It's good to hear from you. I fondly recall the 2 occasions, so on and so forth, when we met. Although I don't know of any immediate opportunities, be assured that I will be alert and will pass along word if I hear about companies seeking someone with your depth of experience. Have you spoken with so-and-so?" I gave him a lead there. He's doing some interesting things, so on and so forth. And then I gave him a lead for somebody else he might want to contact who I thought would have some leads for him. As you may already anticipate, be prepared for the obvious question why you want out of the publisher role so soon. I'm not pressing you for that answer, and it's really none of my business. Just be ready for it. Well, he responded, within a few minutes, actually, according to this email exchange. "Thanks, Jack. I would appreciate any help you can give. As for the publisher role, I was terminated for lying about having a college degree when I did not. A stupid move that won't be repeated. I should have stated that I have a PhD from the School of Hard Knocks instead. Have a nice weekend." What do you think are his chances of ever getting another job in the news industry? Non-existent. Why? Because he's a liar. And why does that matter when you're in journalism or in the media? Why does it matter? You're supposed to be impartial because you're supposed to be defending the truth, right? Integrity. Integrity is important to us as a fraternity. I will tell you that in my chosen profession, integrity is everything, all right? He's dead. He's not going to get another job. Why would he do that? Maybe he's embarrassed that he, failed, college algebra and was, 3 credits short. I don't know. But here's a man who worked his way up in the business. He had the credentials, and maybe out of embarrassment, he put down that he had a BA. I don't know what, but it is a fatal mistake. All of our interns receive evaluations and performance evaluations. And if you've had an internship or maybe you've already had a job where there's a performance review system, this is very common. You should expect you'll get a formal review at least once a year, maybe more frequently. If you do an internship, you could expect you'll get an evaluation as well. This is an actual evaluation returned about one of our students placed at a top-notch newspaper last summer. Okay, she is a very talented photographer. She has developed a nice style and produced some sophisticated images during her internship. She works most situations thoroughly and isn't afraid to get in close to subjects. Her composition skills are solid. She also possesses highly desirable multimedia skills. She can shoot and edit video and gather audio and stills to put together a slideshow. She's well versed in these areas and in fact helped troubleshoot a Final Cut issue for a staff photographer. Editors working with interns expect that the interns will make mistakes. However, she tended to make the same mistakes on more than one occasion, including lacking complete information, poor communication, so on and so forth. She struggled during this internship to the point that I felt she basically blew it off until the last week. She had some personal issues she was dealing with, and it was obvious that her internship took a back burner. She was often absent during her shifts when she could have been taking advantage of talking to and learning from veteran staff. After much encouragement, she began working in the office, and in the last week of her internship gained some valuable coaching from editors and photographers. Last paragraph of this evaluation. In today's newsroom, the most valuable employees are not necessarily the most talented people. They are the most reliable, dedicated people who will put their noses to the grindstone and get the job done without complaint. That, I will tell you, is universal in every field that I know of. Skills will not get you by alone. Experience will not get you by. You have to have integrity and a good work ethic. I had an applicant for one of our internship programs this summer her application was terrific. I was ready to accept her to the program, except there was one problem. She did not enclose a transcript. And for all of our programs, we require a college transcript. And none had been sent. So I had my assistant contact this individual and kept bugging her for the transcript. The transcript finally came in. In her application, we asked her what was her GPA. She listed 3.2, pretty respectable. Certainly better than my GPA when I was at Baldwin Wallace. Substantially better, in fact. But on her, that's what it said in her transcript. But on her application, on her application it said 3.2. In her transcript, it said 2.09. So, I know how to read a college transcript, but I thought I'd give her the benefit of the doubt, so I said, okay, I'll call her and see what the explanation is. She dug herself in deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Her final explanation was she must have added up her GPA from her minor and her major to come up with 3.2. I said, time out. I said, I'm about to give you a lesson, and I hope that you'll learn from this. I said, I could report this to your university, and I said, you'd be expelled. I said, I could document this in such a way that you'd never get a job. I said, I'm going to give you a redo card. I said, you ever do this again? I said, it's all over. I said, I would have accepted her with a 2.09. All I'm asking is that she be honest about it. She had all the other credentials. I really don't care whether a person is getting a 4.0 or a 3.0 or a 2.0 as long as they're passing their courses. What a tragedy. She's not going to make it. She's just not going to make it. I hope she succeeds at something else, but she's not going to make it in journalism. Why? She doesn't understand and respect the importance of integrity. All right. We had an applicant for another one of our programs. This is now 2 years ago. And again, everything looked great on the applications. And then we looked at the reference letters, and the reference letters were just glowing in the praise of this individual. But they were written in a very unusual style, and the way that the letters were all dated, it used that European style of dating. You know, instead of the month, the day, and the year, it was the day, the month, and the year, which seemed unusual to us. And then we noticed that one of the letters was supposedly from this individual, and this happened to be somebody we knew because this person used to work for me. And I was familiar with her writing style, and it wasn't the same. So we confronted the individual, and again, said, why did you fabricate letters of reference, which is exactly what he did. And he said, well, he was the oppressive deadline to get the application package in. What a tragedy. He was expelled from his university. He paid a dear, dear price for that. He was also an international student, and I suspect he had problems even staying in the country. He didn't have to do that. People would have said good things about him, but he decided he had to take a shortcut and submit that letter. Other things, some real tragedies. We had an intern fired from his internship 2 years ago for sending a sexually explicit email to the wife of his newsroom mentor. And his excuse was that he was intoxicated and not in control of himself. He's fired. End of story. We had another, one of our graduates fired from his job after being charged with and convicted of misdemeanor trespass and committing a lewd act in the bedroom of a house where he intruded. His excuse, he was intoxicated. And I think maybe the greatest tragedy of all, we had one of our alums from our very first class 20 years ago. 20 years ago. She'd had a great career, worked for a terrific newspaper, and just recently was fired because the editor discovered that she was fabricating sources. Integrity, a good attitude, work ethic are essential to your success. And without them, you will flounder and fail, regardless of your brilliance, your qualifications, your talent, and your experience. The creed of this fraternity means a great deal, and it means a great deal to your success. I've made up sort of my top 10 list based on what I have witnessed and what I've experienced in the last 39 years. And I want to go through my top 10 list with you, okay? And so this is maybe more of a career advice session, or may appear that way rather than a session about the creed, but believe me, I'll tie it back. Number 1, know your employer's expectations. Assume nothing. When you get to a job, and I don't if it's an internship or it's a first full-time job, you need to find out, what materials are there available for you as an employee that will help you understand the operation and the expectations. Things like a job description, an employee handbook, an ethics guide. Every profession has an ethics code of professional standards, certainly do in the journalism field. An employee directory. There are other written documents, but be very clear, read those, understand them, so you know what the expectations are for you in the workplace. Don't be afraid to ask questions if you do not understand something, but be very afraid of acting without understanding the consequences. So number 1, know your employer's expectations. Number 2, know the workplace policies. A lot of people are getting in trouble these days because of the way that they're using computers on the job, or telephones, or the internet, emails, social networking. Know what the policies are. When you're in a workplace and you're working on a computer, you know who owns that work? The employer. If you're doing Facebook updates and doing personal email on company time, first of all, you're stealing from your employer. The other thing is the employer has the perfect right to look at what you're doing. All that work on the computer, and if the computer is at the workplace and owned by the employer, it's all the property of the employer. So beware, okay? Number 3, attendance. I'm sure that some of you have made the same mistake that I did, and you once signed up for an 8 o'clock class, all right? I only did that once, all right? My freshman year, I signed up for one 8 o'clock class, and I never repeated that again. In the real world, you got to make the 8 o'clock class, folks. You have to be on time, and better yet, be ahead of time. Your attendance, your punctuality, your reliability are keys to success. Don't think about sick days as a fringe benefit, that if you're allotted 10 sick days a year, you have to be sure you take every one of them. Don't come to work when you're sick, but don't stay home when you're not sick, all right? That's part of being honest and not stealing time from your employer. So, number 3, attendance. Be prompt, be reliable, give your employer 100%. Number 4, honesty. You simply have to tell the truth. You can't cheat and you can't steal. And maybe some of you have gotten away with that in college. I will tell you that you're just lucky you weren't caught. The stakes get a lot higher once you graduate. They get a lot higher. Any one of those things will be career-ending for you. They will end your careers. In journalism, plagiarism and fabrication, a single incident will end it. And I have to believe that in most fields, plagiarism and fabrications will do the same. You will mess up. Okay? You are going to make mistakes. Own up to your mistakes. Don't run from them. Don't hide from them. Own up to them. Learn from them and move on. But never be in a position of making a mistake, not acknowledging it, and then having somebody else discover it. Right? You are going to screw up at some point. I hope it's not intentionally, but it will happen. And remember the words of Jiminy Cricket. Let your conscience be your guide. And be sure that your conscience switch is always on. Number 5, personal appearance, dress, and first impressions. I am shocked when I go into workplaces today and I see how people are dressed. And I am incensed when I walk into my physician's office on casual dress day and I can't tell who's the custodian and who's the physician. I think that we've got to be much more professional in our appearance, whether you are in a profession or whether you're in an office environment. I think you have to set a high standard for your personal appearance regardless of how informal your office is or how sloppily dressed your coworkers are. I think you need to conduct yourself as a professional, and I think you need to look the part. And the best advice I ever heard was dress for your next job, not the job you're in. Dress for your next job. The whole thing about you have one chance to make a first impression, and you don't want the first impression to be that you're a slob or that you're unprofessional in your appearance. I think it really reflects poorly on you. Our advice to journalists is to dress appropriately for the job assignment. And so we tell journalists, reporters, and photographers, come to the office, dress business casual, and then have a change of clothes available. So if you need to dress up, if you're suddenly summoned to the White House for a press conference, you can dress up a little bit. Or if you're called out to cover a natural disaster, you can change into jeans and appropriate shoes. So dress appropriate for the assignment, but I think that your personal appearance and your dress can help you in your success. I'm not saying that that alone is going to do it, but I will tell you that if you look unprofessional, you'll be treated unprofessionally. Number 6, expressing yourself. Betty Marsh, my bride of 39 years, who incidentally was a Pie Lamb nominee for Homecoming Queen at Baldwin Wallace College in 1969. Betty works as a school counselor in an elementary school, so she takes care of the little kids, from kindergarten through 5th grade. And Betty has to call the kids into her office and tell them, not everything you think in your head should come out of your mouth. Okay? And I think she has to do that on a regular basis. And that's understandable for kids who have no inhibitions and are just kind of free spirits between the ages of 5 and 10. Okay? Well, I'll tell you, that lesson should apply to us as grown-ups. Not everything you think in your head should come out of your mouth, should be put in writing, should be in a text message, should be in your Facebook status update, should be in an email or whatever. There was an incredible thing. I don't know if you even know about this. Maybe you studied it in history. They used to have this thing where you could actually take out a pen, and there'd be a blank piece of paper, and you could write something. You could write a letter or something. I guess that's what they called them. You could write a letter on this sheet of paper, and you put it in an envelope. This is true. You put it in an envelope, and you put an address on it, and then you put what they call a stamp in the upper right-hand corner, and you drop it in a mailbox, and it would be delivered anywhere in the country. And it used to be really cheap. It's I don't know, heck, one time I think it was under 50 cents. It was an incredible thing. But the nice thing I always thought was when I got really ticked off about something and I fired off that letter, and I wrote it and I put it in that envelope, I didn't mail it till the next day. And the next day, I felt a little different. I said, I was kind of hot about that, and it's probably a better way to handle it. The problem now is we hit that send key. We hit that send key. And we ought to step back. When you don't have to respond immediately to every outrageous situation or everything that's said to you in a text message or on Facebook or wherever, okay? Not everything you think in your head has to come out of your mouth or has to immediately be put in an email or a text message or posted on Facebook. When I was in elementary school and when I was naughty, I'd be summoned to the principal's office. And the principal would say, Jack Marsh, if you don't straighten up, this is going to go on your permanent record. And I will tell you, as an 8-year-old, I believed that, and I just shuddered at, my God. I mean, what I just did on the playground could become part of my permanent record? And of course, that was all bunk. But I will tell you, you all are building your own permanent records. I want you to take a good look at your Facebook pages tonight. And I want you to take a look at the photos that you put up. I want you to take a look at what you say in your Facebook profile. I want you to take a look at what your persona looks like online, all right? And the reason I want you to look at that is because your prospective employers are all going to look at that. And the United States Army, I'll bet, vetted you before they agreed to commission you as a second lieutenant. Probably. And guess what? Have you tried Googling yourself recently? If you got something on your Facebook page that your grandmother wouldn't just be tickled pink to read or see, get it down and just hope that it didn't get captured. The consequences are dire, okay? For whatever reason, your generation has gotten much, much too casual about this. That is a permanent record. Once it's out there, you can never really pull it back. Be very, very cautious about anything that you write in any medium. And I don't know if you've heard this lecture before, but I will tell you, in my career, I have hired hundreds of people. And those that I've been hiring for the last several years, I Google them. And if I see something that I don't like, that reflects negatively on a person's character, I won't hire them, because I don't have to. There are plenty of other people who are qualified who are looking for work. It is serious, serious stuff, all right? So, I mean, if you've got, a bunch of pictures of yourself and, you're hitting the bottle hard at the, last Pie Lamb party, is that the resume you want to put out? Because that is the new resume. Your online persona is your new resume. Okay. So apply the grandma test. Would grandma be pleased with what I'm writing in this text message, what I'm putting in my Facebook status update, whatever? Okay. I'll share one more example to bring this home. This isn't the worst. I've seen a lot worse than this one, if I can find this.
Yeah.
You're Googling me? Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. This is what one of our students, one of the graduates of our program, wrote about herself in her Facebook profile. I've seen worse. Well, let's see. I attend such and such a university. I'm taking 18 credit hours right now and working about 30 hours a week. So I don't have a lot of time to do anything. I'm usually too busy. Friday or Saturday seem to be the only days when I can go out and get very drunk and party. I love hanging out with my friends. If I didn't, I would be bored out of my mind. And I hope to graduate in December with a degree in journalism. Good luck finding the job. I mean, isn't this just the person that you want to hire and, move up in your organization? This is what she says about herself. This is what she says about herself. And I've seen a lot worse. Also, take a look at what your answering machines, what you say in your answering machine, how the message. Just go straight, folks. You don't have to be cute about it. I'll call somebody up to give them a job offer. And the way the message they leave on their phone is so unprofessional, I say, why bother? All right? All those things matter, all right? It's your resume. Number 7, colleagues. Pay attention to who does the good work and who gives good advice. Treat everyone as valuable, because everyone is valuable in some way. Know that the people you work with now can impact your life now and later. Be the kind of person that others want to work with. This doesn't mean being the whole, happy-go-lucky party monger. It does mean being a colleague that can be counted on for ideas, for help with a project, for contributions to the organization's goals, for solutions instead of complaints, for delivering what is promised, and more. It is rare to succeed alone. The more that you help others achieve, the more you will achieve. Number 8, office politics and romances. I say steer clear of both, all right? Steer clear of both. In the newsrooms around this country, we have a group of people we call the swamp people. The swamp people. And I swear that there probably are swamp people in every career field. The swamp people are the negative people. They're the ones who think the boss is an idiot. And as soon as you show up, whether you're an intern or the new employee, they want to make you one of the swamp people too, and tell you just what an idiot the boss is, or that they could run the company better, and they want to drag you right down. Well, let me tell you that boss is such an idiot that he hired you. That's how bad his judgment is. When you go to work for somebody, a man, a woman, an organization, I think you owe that person some loyalty and respect. And if it doesn't work out, then move on. But somebody sees enough promise in you that they're willing to give you a chance. I think you, in return, do owe them that respect and loyalty. So don't get caught up with the swamp people. And I think they're out there everywhere, all right? The negative people. And then when it comes to office romances, you can get into a lot of trouble. Let me just leave it at that. Get into a lot of trouble. I think you're better off, take your dating away from work. And I also think it's nice to not necessarily be with somebody in the same field or in the same line of work. Number 9, initiative, curiosity, and networking. There's going to be downtime at work, and there also will be, of course, off time when you're not at work. And when you're at work and not busy, it's important that you do take the initiative and offer to help in whatever ways are needed. Don't sit around and wait for an assignment. You need to be proactive. Away from the job, seek ways to stay engaged. Spend your time productively to become better. Be observant, be a good listener, be a student of others. We had a conversation today with 3 elders of this fraternity, and I listened very carefully to what they had to say about the meaning of this fraternity to them and about the creed. I think we can learn so much if we just listen to what wise and experienced people have to say. Now, as a journalist, this takes on new meaning for me, or a different meaning, about being curious. And I have to tell you, I'll give you a couple personal confessions. I am a nosy person, okay? I'm paid to be nosy. Journalists have this license to ask questions. And I think it's sort of an addiction for us, this curiosity. I have a game. I travel a lot. This year, I don't know, I'll do 100 flights or 120 flights, something like that. So I'm on the road quite a bit, and I eat out alone quite a bit, but I always try to sit by a table within earshot so I can hear what the conversation is. Now, it's not that I'm not there bugging the table, and I'm not going to immediately run to a phone and dictate a story based on what I hear. But I'd like to know what people are talking about, because as a journalist, what people are talking about usually is what they're concerned about. And I just find I'm a better informed individual if I'm tuned into that stuff. So that's one little thing I do. The other thing is I seek out opportunities to engage people in conversation. People love to talk about themselves. All you have to do is ask them, and they can't help it. It just comes out. Trust me, it just pours out. And because I fly so much, people are trapped next to me, anywhere from an hour flight to a 3 or 4 hour flight. And it has made travel so much more interesting and pleasurable, and frankly made life a lot more interesting when I engage people who are sitting next to me in an airplane, or you engage people who you meet in a cafe or whatever. Some of the people you meet are just interesting. Others are extraordinary. Within the past 2 years, I have met some amazing people, and I've heard some great stories. I was on a flight going into Washington a year or so ago, and this elderly gentleman was walking down the aisle. He was kind of struggling with his bag, and there was a seat open next to me, and it was obvious he was heading there. So I asked him if I could help him with his bag. So I put his bag away, and he obviously took the seat right beside me, and we got into some small talk. And I said, "Where are you headed today?" He said, "Well," I'm going to Washington. I said, "Oh," I said, "what takes you to Washington?" He said, they have an office for me there." I said, "Oh," I said, are you retired? He said, yeah, well, I'm retired. I said, you retired military? He said, actually I am. I said, what branch of the service were you in? He said, well, I actually worked for all of them. I said, you worked for all of them? Well, I looked at him again. I knew he wasn't a former president of the United States. I said, can I ask you who you are, sir? And he said, I'm General Jack Vesey, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. This is the man who presided over the end of the Cold War during 4 years of the Reagan administration. It was an incredible flight from that point on. I just asked him question after question after question, and he just talked on. It just was fascinating. I had a very unassuming man in his 30s sit next to me on a flight a year or so ago, and we got talking, and he said, who do you work for? And I said, I work for this foundation. He'd heard of it, and he was curious about it. He asked me a bunch of questions, and I said, who do you work for? He said, I happen to work for a foundation too. I said, you do? I said, what foundation do you work for? He said, I work for the Helmsley Foundation. I said, you work for the Helmsley Foundation? I said, how did you get hooked up with the Helmsley Foundation? He said, I'm Leona Helmsley's grandson. So for those of you who aren't from New York, Leona Helmsley owned half of Manhattan, and she was a total eccentric. And she left a fortune somewhere in the neighborhood of $8 billion, and this grandson, who was about to start seminary, was named one of the trustees of an $8 billion estate, and his job is to decide, along with one brother, an uncle, and a couple of close confidants to his grandmother, what to do with $8 billion. I said, you realize the responsibility you have? You can bring about transformational change throughout the world. And you know what he's doing? Just that. He is now giving away, through the Helmsley Foundation, they're giving away tens of millions of dollars, largely for health care. Just a great trip, okay? Sat next to Frank Prendergast the other day. He's the former head of cancer research for the Mayo Clinic. Big, big deal. From my era, I sat next to Pat Botts, drummer from Three Dog Night. That's a big deal for me. Jeff Hanna, guitarist and vocalist for the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. You probably never heard of him. Walter Bond, former NBA player, now one of the great nationally known motivational speakers. And over the last several years on planes, I've sat across from, behind, next to former President Walter Mondale and his wife Joan, Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, George McGovern, the 1972 Democratic nominee for president, former Health and Human Services Secretary Donna Shalala, NBC Nightline's former host Ted Koppel, and Paul Tibbets. Who in this room knows who Paul Tibbets is? We have one person who knows who Paul Tibbets is. Paul Tibbets was the pilot of the bomber Enola Gay that dropped the atomic bomb over Hiroshima, Japan, that resulted in the end of the Second World War. If nothing else, getting to know people you encounter, whether it's the famous on an airplane or whether it's just plain folk at the cafe, life is a lot more interesting when you engage with other people, all right? And you hear their stories. And you might actually find that you can do some pretty good networking that way. And you might even discover that somebody is a fraternity brother. That has happened to me now on a couple of occasions. I'm going to talk about that a little bit tonight at dinner. So reach out and engage with others. Number 10, and this is probably the most serious I'm going to get with you this morning, or this afternoon. Number 10 is chemical dependency and abuse and alcoholism. I don't know you very well, but I know that statistically 1 in 10 individuals in this room is an alcoholic or is chemically dependent. And I've seen enough heartbreak, and I've experienced enough heartbreak through my family and my extended family over the last 40 years to tell you that if you are chemically dependent, if alcoholism is an issue for you, you've got to seek professional help. This is extremely important, folks. And I know as a fraternity that alcohol abuse and drug abuse has taken down many chapters, and it's caused a lot of problems for us. But I will tell you that on an individual basis, if you don't get this under control, it will destroy your family, it will destroy your career, and eventually it will destroy you. It is serious, serious stuff. And there's abuse of alcohol and drugs short of addiction, I realize. And you need to pay attention to that as well. But in my 61 years, I've seen a lot of people destroyed and hurt, and I've seen a lot of families torn apart by alcoholism and drug abuse and chemical dependency. And 1 in 10 in this room is statistically we know is an alcoholic or is chemically dependent. The percentage of those of you in this room who are touched by it because of a family member is probably over half this room. If you don't have alcoholism in your family, God bless you, you're fortunate. It is a huge, huge issue, all right? And as members of a brotherhood, this is one thing that we can do for one another is to get the help, all right? I'm not a drug counselor. I'm not a professional in any way in that area. I do know enough that it's got to be taken seriously, and you need that professional help. And if that speaks to just one person in this room, great. Okay. So we've just about run out of time, and perhaps you're thinking to yourself, what does all this have to do with the Pi Lambda Phi Creed? Well, let me tell you that you must have credibility to be an effective advocate for the high principles of Pi Lambda Phi. And you know what they are: the elimination of prejudice, racial equality, religious liberty, honesty and justice, defense of the Republic, and defense of the freedoms we enjoy. Hypocrites and phonies do not make good evangelists. Members of this fraternity who are good citizens, who work and live with integrity, who embrace and believe in our creed, they are the Brotherhood's most effective ambassadors. So I thank you for your attention. I am proud to be your brother and to be part of a fraternity that for 115 years has been advocating for diversity, civility, decency, inclusion, and integrity. Thank you very much.